Welcome to this second session of interviews on the FTTH Conference in Stockholm. With me I have Hartwig Tauber, the General Manager of FTTH Council Europe. Welcome, Hartwig.
Thank you.
As you can see behind us, it's lunchtime here in Stockholm, and we are it's still coming in lots of people from all around the world to this event. The latest numbers I've actually heard them just recently from you, Hartwig. 3,000 people are here.
Indeed. First of all, thank you for inviting me and welcome. Yes, we have just got the latest numbers. We again reached the 3,000 people for the FTTH conference, which makes this event the biggest fiber to the home related event in the world, which makes us proud. And if we talk about numbers, another number is we have 84 different countries represented here. So the delegates are really coming from all over the world. Of course, most of them from the European side. And this is for us a real big and great success to welcome so many people here in Stockholm. And for us, it's a special honor to be in Stockholm, because talking about these special things, it's for the first time that we are in a country where we don't need to educate the people fiber is necessary, but we are here to showcase how they use fiber and how they use the fiber to the home technology to enhance their life, to get a better economy running, and even to have the environment protected.
Yeah. Talking about all these nationalities, do you know who's been traveling the longest way to come here?
The longest way, thinking about my geographic knowledge, I think is we have a delegation from New Zealand here.
From New Zealand?
So really from the other side of the world coming over, which is interesting for us because New Zealand is one of the leading countries on fiber, and still they made the effort to come over and see what Sweden and the Nordic countries are doing on fiber networks, which is, I believe, a very, very good sign for the Nordic countries on how far they are already ahead on fiber adoption.
Are there events like this in other parts of the world trying to compete with us in this event?
Yes, there are events, but they don't compete with us. So that's the good and the bad news. We have 5 FTTH councils worldwide. So this is, in addition to the FTTH Council Europe, we have one in Americas, including Latin America, one in Asia Pacific, one in Middle East, and one in South Africa. And we, as the FTTH Council Europe, are working very closely together to make sure that we can cover the whole globe on fiber adoption. And they all do an annual conference. I'm happy to say, and of course proud, that the European one is the largest and the biggest one of all.
Is there a reason why we are the largest conference?
Maybe it's because of the good food that we are offering here. It's always difficult to say. I mean, the European market is quite a big market. It's still a growing market, so it is very interesting for the people to see also what are the dynamics here. But I believe, and that's the reason why I looked at the food, we try to do our conference as a real networking event. So it's not just a conference with streams, it's not just an exhibition hall, it's really something where the people come in, stay here for 2 days, and can really do networking, meeting each other. And just when I came in, I met a friend of mine who said, Hartwig, it's great. I have a series of meetings the next 2 days, which saves me nearly 4 weeks of traveling, because instead of going all around Europe, all the people are here. And I think this is a bit of the secret of the success of this event, which we, of course, will want to continue also in the next years.
Is there a main topic at this event, except from FTTH, of course?
Yes, this year, as mentioned at the beginning, the main topic is showcasing a brighter future, which means we have in the program of the conference a lot of sessions where the Nordic operators, the Nordic organizations and decision makers show what they do with fiber. So just now we had one session running where the big operators in the Nordics said we do fiber because of this and this reasons. We have 2 sessions on gaming, because a lot of people don't know it, but most of the big gaming studios have offices here in the Nordics. one of the reasons is because Fibre is here. We have a session talking about Fibre can save your life. So it's about e-health, care for elderly people, to show it is more than just faster internet. It's really something that changes the way we use the broadband connections. And the good thing is, here in the Nordics, we don't talk what could come in the future. We simply show what's already happening. And just to give you a small teaser, tomorrow when we talk about e-health, we will have a robot on stage who is used for taking care for elderly people. So people can really see and touch these solutions already.
Oh, yeah? But I mean, there must be whole much future as well as, I mean, maybe we in Sweden are ahead of many other countries, but there must be, I mean...
The future is something that is very difficult to predict, of course, but this is something we also want to tell the people, and our president Karin Alm made it very clearly in her opening speech when she said 30 years ago a lot of the business and the companies that are big today didn't even exist, and let's talk about the next 20, 30 years. You don't know what will come. And we just had this discussion also in one of our sessions in the program when we talk about smart cities, smart regions, and this is not just saying, okay, you can control your heating from the office, which of course sometimes I would be happy if I could switch on my oven so that when I come home I can already put the pizza in. But this is just one thing. The other thing is, to give you an example, with Fibre and really a connected world, things like autonomous cars are possible. Something you couldn't imagine 3 years ago. Today they're already driving in the US. And so just imagine if this is possible everywhere, and taking a country like Sweden with a lot of rural areas. I myself, I'm coming from Austria, so I have the same. Imagine instead of having a public transport where a huge bus needs to go from one city to the other, you have autonomous public cars that are connected to your agenda on your whatever you have then smartphone device. And when you know, okay, I need to go, let's say, to Stockholm and I'm somewhere outside, the car is there. You just enter it, and then you will say, it sounds like future. I would like to make a bet that 2030 this will be reality, and we will just, like today, we are connected with a smartphone, which nobody could imagine 10 years ago. In 20 years, we will just have this as a very normal thing in our life. And then we will realize that Fibre and the Fibre broadband really changed the way we are living and thinking.
Yeah. Talking about this morning, you made an amazing entrance. Can you just tell more about the beginning of this day?
Yes, this is something very special we always do at the FTTH conference, that we want to make a strong start so that people have something to talk about. And this year, as we have the super citizens, so if you look at our visuals, you always have the people having their Fibre to the Home house here. We had a film at the beginning where we showed a family connected to Fibre, and the father at the end was more or less a Fibre superhero. And to underline this, Nadia Babali, our communications director, and myself, who were the moderators of the session, we not just walked on the stage, we came down the ceiling. So like special forces, we are now the FTTH Council Super Citizen Special Forces, making sure that everyone in Europe gets Fibre as quick as possible.
Oh yeah. And after that entrance, you had 4 Swedish speakers. That must be the first time ever you have 4 beginning speakers from one and the same country.
Indeed, and the reason for this one, and that's we are really proud of, is that Sweden is the country where Fibre is happening. So the decision makers, and this means the Minister for Information Technology and Energy, the Mayor of Stockholm, the Chairman of the regulator, and of course our President, who is also Swedish, they all were happy to come. And those who followed the FTTH conferences in the past know, in countries where Fibre adoption is not that popular, it's strange. The politicians, the decision makers, they hide. They don't want to go on stage, which is a pity. And so today it was really a strong message, I think, to the whole of Europe, saying we are proud about fiber, and we are proud that we can showcase how we use fiber to make Sweden and the Nordic countries really future-looking countries.
Do you think it's possible to get the other countries in Europe to learn from this?
This is our mission. So that's why we also brought the conference here. We do our best to convince the decision makers, those who are in the governments, to understand the real impact of fiber. And of course, it's a mission that will take still many years, because I believe it's also a generation problem. We shouldn't forget many of the politicians that are sitting in parliaments in Europe still have a secretary printing out the emails because they don't want to touch anything. And convincing them that the future looks different is a bit of a tedious work. But on the other hand, if you look at young people, young ministers, talking about Anna-Karin Hatt, the minister this morning, or I met some times ago the French minister for information technology, is also a very young person. They understand it and they know how to move it forward. And this is what we as an FTTH Council want to push. We want to showcase these are the good examples, and if you make a decision, we have the facts, we have the figures, and we have the models for it, so that it's not just a vague thingy, it will change the world. It's really something where we can make a decision based on facts and figures at the end.
Is it easier nowadays to reach out with a message like this for the politicians? I mean, for many politicians, it has always been a matter of cost to invest in fiber.
I would say it's still a challenge. So there are, let's say the other way around, because I always need to say, if we talk about Europe, we have not one single market, we have 28 different markets. And we have markets where it is easy to get these messages out, like the Nordic ones where we are in at the moment. And there are others where we really need to do still a long work and a long way to go until they realize it's necessary not to do small steps, not to follow the incumbents doing small upgrades and then saying that will work for the next 2 years, and after the elections we look for the next solutions, but to make a visionary statement saying, let's go this direction. And our president used a very nice sentence saying, you shouldn't do these small steps. You should do it once and you should do it right. And that's fiber.
Yeah. Were there anything more said this morning which we should take up here?
I think one other topic which is important for Europe and which was stressed by several of the speakers is the topic of inclusion. Inclusion meaning, some people call it digital divide, making sure that everyone gets fiber, not just specific people in a big city in a specific region, but to make sure that everyone gets fiber, like they get electricity, like they get gas and water, to ensure it's a basic infrastructure you need to be connected. Because just imagine, you do an e-government solution and suddenly 20% of the people are disconnected from this democratic process because, sorry, your connection is not good enough. Or there is a healthcare system that really supports you staying at home longer, and then if you would like to do this, the people have to tell you, sorry, you're living in an area where it's not possible because you don't have the fiber connection. And this has a very big social impact. And we at the FTTH Council, we really take this serious. And we even say already several times, we believe that it's a political decision to make now if we want to have a Europe of prosperous regions or a Europe of megacities. Because young people need the infrastructure. And if we only build it in cities, then the people will go to them. And we believe it is not possible to build a highway into every small city. It is not possible to connect every municipality with a high-speed train, but it is possible and it's affordable to connect every single European household with fiber.
Some people talk about, at least here in Sweden, they're talking about it mobile. You only need the mobile connection.
This is wonderful. We love mobile, and I really have to make this statement again. We love mobile. The reason is this is complementary. So mobile connection and fixed connections are not competing each other. If you are at home and you want to do video on demand services, you want to have a 4K video streaming, you want to do high speed teleworking, you need a fixed line.
Yeah.
But of course, if we are moving around with our tablets, smartphones, all of us need the mobile connections. Plus, and that's the important thing, the more mobile users you have, the more fiber you need. Because many people forget if you have a base station, it's a shared connection. So if you want to make sure that everyone gets at least 20, 30 megabit, which is not too much anymore, then you need to have hundreds of base stations in a small area. And now guess, you need to connect them somehow, and that's with fiber. And just to give you an idea why this can even go the other direction, if you look at our statistics, it's not Europe at the moment, but nearly, Turkey is surprisingly one of the countries that adopted to fiber very strongly in the last years. The story behind it is that Turkcell, that's a mobile operator, and all of you who ever have been in Turkey on holiday, they immediately have this as the main mobile operator on their smartphones. They said, yes, we want to do a LTE rollout. So they did the planning, they looked at how can we make sure it's a real serious one, not just 100 megabit shared by 200 people and you have nothing at the end. And they realized the best way to do it is having base stations nearly on every second or third house. And then they realized if we do this, it's just a small additional investment to make fiber to the home.
Yeah.
And so they founded a subsidiary called Super Online, who just made use of this plan and sold fiber to the home connections in addition. And it was successful. So Super Online has a lot of fiber connections, and at the same time, Turkcell is selling the LTE connections. And this gives a bit of a feeling that it's not competitive, it's really something that is perfectly fitting together.
So the mobile operators can actually drive your business?
Indeed, and it's even also the other way around. We heard this from the mayor of Stockholm this morning. One of the reasons why Stockholm has, I believe, the best coverage on LTE worldwide is the fact that fiber is available. Because the mobile operators could very easily build up their infrastructure and base stations to make a great coverage of fiber here in this region. So it's really a win-win situation for both sides. And this is really something we as an FTTH Council say, this is great. We just warn the decision makers and the politicians to do the wrong step that some people do today, saying, yes, you know, for the rural areas, mobile connection is the perfect solution because, and it happened in Germany, for example, you just put one LTE base station in the middle of the city, of the municipality or the village, and then you can say, da, 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 we have 100 megabit.
Oh, yeah.
The next day, 40 people subscribe to it, and in the evening hours, if all the 40 people connect to 100 megabit, you don't need to meet a math genius to say, okay, then 2 to 3 megabit is the maximum you get. And the problem is then, of course, because it was publicly supported, it was with a strong push. If then these people go back to the decision makers and say, can you please make sure we get something better than that? They say, sorry, we just helped you, come back in 7 years and then we help you again. And now, you see, we come back to the digital divide story, which is the one where we say we need to make sure everyone gets the full connection at the end.
Yeah. Talking about this event, is there any special seminar or something you want to lift up for the audience?
There is always the thing, all of them are good. So putting for some, I mentioned already some, like the e-health one. There is one session tomorrow in the afternoon where we will present the results of a study that we did with end users. I don't want to tell too much now because this will come later on with the analyst himself. But what we did is we said, let's ask in Sweden, because here we have it, fiber users and non-fiber users, how happy they are with the connection. And we were really neutral and said, whatever is the result, let's look at it. And we were impressed to see that fiber users are really happy people in a way that they say they want to have the fiber, they want to keep the fiber, and they're really satisfied with what they get. And if you ask the same thing to the typical DSL copper users, it is significantly lower. They are really saying we have big problems with the connection speed. And there's a lot of people who said, if I would have the chance to go from copper to fiber, I would do it. But many of them can't because it's not available. And I think that's also a good message for the operators, because there's always the discussion, is the demand outside? Will the people really need it? There is the demand. You just need to offer it and market it the right way. And then, of course, give the people the chance to adopt to it. But if you get a critical mass, and that's maybe the second session where I could say that's really of interest. It's today in the evening, the session about market data. It's the tradition that here at the conference we show the latest update on the FTTH market and also the forecast. And then we have a panel with all the global councils discussing. And on the forecast, the analyst from Heavy Reading, he has a very interesting approach. He says a country is mature on fiber if it reaches 20% of homes connected. And the idea behind this is, let's say, the first 20% you need to really to adopt, and then if you have 20% of people using fiber, the dynamic that the others want it and adapt to it, and also the operators realizing, wow, there is a demand for it, is coming very easily. And that's, I think it's a good message.
Thank you very much for coming, Hartwig.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, and have fun and enjoy the conference here. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you very much. And to all of you viewers, if you want to see the whole show, see the whole seminar, you can log in at FTTHconference.eu and register there. And with me now, I have Ove Alm, the CEO of Skanova, the Swedish largest network owner, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. Ove, you're a very special person. I mean, you're not only the CEO in a company in a small part of the former incumbent. You're also actually a fiber optic scientist.
Well, I started off my career with trying to be a researcher in optics and optical sensors, because when I studied in the 80s, we saw the future of fiber and fiber optics. So that was really an area that I was devoted to. But after a couple of years as a researcher, I wanted to change the direction and work totally with people and more technical systems and the change of society instead. So I changed career, and I'm very happy of that.
So does the society look like you thought it would look like when you were working as a scientist?
Well, we understood early that fiber is the solution, ultimate solution for telecommunications all the way to the houses. But we couldn't see the future of the demand, really. So that's what we have been waiting for some decades now. But now we have the demand and the demand-driven fiber rollout. So I think the society, you can never predict the development of society. But what is happening now, you couldn't even predict a couple of years ago. So I think it's fascinating to be part of that development.
You are one of the main fiber net owners here in Sweden. What development do you see? I mean, you're investing heavy in fiber to the home these days. Are the demand growing?
Well, we have, I think, a very unique situation in Sweden in two ways. One is the competition on the network layer, because we are not the only one building fiber network. We are only building a passive layer in my company. But we have around 200 players in Sweden building fiber networks. And that's a lot for a country of 9 million inhabitants to have that many fiber operators. That's very unique, I think. And also what we have in Sweden now is a very high demand of services. Actually, the change of behavior, the consumer is actually helping out, because it's not so that you can just build a network and you will get your money back. You have to have customers that would like to pay for the services. And we have that in Sweden, and that's helping out. Thanks to that willingness to have new services and pay for it, we all that we are investing in Sweden are investing more and more and see the future in the business. Even if it's a long-term investment, we can actually see that we will get our money back.
Yeah, but it sounds really strange. I mean, the Swedish people must be made of money. I mean, they're paying €2,000 up front. Yeah. To get the fiber into the home. Then they're paying €50 a month or something for having access within this, and then they pay for services like TV and gaming and movies and stuff like that.
But you can also see it as an investment for the family, because if you pay a one-time fee of 2,000 euros to get fiber into your own house, the value increases of your house. It's actually so in Sweden and in Stockholm particularly, I know stories about families that are going to buy a new house, and if the new house don't have fiber, the children will not join the parents to look at the house even, because you have to have a fiber to have an easy sale process nowadays.
Is this a generation question? I mean, you're talking about children bringing the demand here.
Yeah, it could be, because children are maybe the first one to adopt to a new way of living. And for example, if you look at broadcast TV, many people, even in my generation, use media streaming as a complement to broadcast TV. But in young generation, they don't watch broadcast TV at all. They only watch streaming media. And of course, then you need better broadband capacity, preferably through fiber, to see that.
What are the big issues when building fiber in the Nordics? I mean, most people viewing this, they are living in Central and Southern Europe. I guess they have much easier way to dig in the ground, stuff like that.
Well, we have problems with the usually strong and cold winters, even if this winter is so far a mild winter. So it's many months we can't do anything because it's a frozen ground. Otherwise, I think it's very, very expensive to dig in the ground and build a network. And so we are very dependent on the local authorities, municipalities, that they have a good cooperation with us so we can actually use new methods, get the cost down, and then we can reach more people with broadband. So I think the digging cost and taking care of the streets afterwards with asphalt and things, I think that's a great portion of cost. And if you can do that in a better way, we can do a lot more in Sweden.
The local authorities, are they willingness to do this? Or are they hard to get?
Well, you can't say yes or no, because we have 290 local municipalities in Sweden, and they act in 290 different ways. Some of them, of course, have their own city networks. Some of them are dependent on we or other actors that are building fiber networks. Some of them are very keen that we will get there and help them to build fiber networks, and are very good in helping us to get the cost down, and we can do more for them and the inhabitants in that geography. But others are not doing that because they would like to have maybe new roads and things like that. So it's a big difference between them, how they act.
Okay, but that must cost a fortune for you to cooperate with 290 local authorities.
Yeah, but that is the situation we have here in Sweden, and it's very important to have this relation with the local authorities in a good way. And since we have a copper network all over Sweden, we have some relations already, and it's also up to us to behave in a good way and to be a good part of the society when we act.
We have a real strong competition here in Sweden as well. We have the old incumbent, which is you. We have EQT, which is a risk capital company. And we have all these local networks owned by local governments, local parts of the country. How do you compete in the market?
Well, first of all, I could say that I think it's very good to have competition, because it drives us to perform better and have new ideas how to perform even better in the future. So I think competition is good. It's good for us, it's good for our suppliers, it's good for our customers also. So we really support competition, but on equal terms, preferably. But for example, you mentioned a company that's a venture capitalist, and I think that's interesting to see that they are investing in this also, because they wouldn't do it if we couldn't see there was a good future in good business doing this. So that's one sign that we are doing the right thing here in Sweden, building a lot of fiber, of course. So it encourages us to continue and maybe to speed up a little bit, of course.
Do you think this competition will be good for Sweden? and for the Swedish
I think
people?
so, yeah. I think probably we have reached the position that we have today thanks to competition and the high demands from the customer. I think the other two factors actually have put us in the top of the league regarding fiber. So I think that's very good for the country.
So is there any possibility for you to say any number about how many homes? I mean, you're building fiber to the home. How many homes do you actually come into every year?
Well, it depends on how you count, because in Sweden you have to understand that roughly half of the population live in multi-dwelling units, apartment buildings, and roughly half in private houses in villas. And we have in Sweden we have built a lot of multi-dwelling units over the last decade with a lot of fiber. So what we are talking about now, we mainly continue with fiber to the houses, FTTH to the single houses. And we are doing a lot, and we have 200 city networks are doing a lot. But last year, I think it was more than 60,000 houses. And we are trying to speed up a little bit, but it's very expensive and it takes time. And you have to
Is it possible to speed up?
Well, it's a matter of resources, and because you need to have technicians out there in the field that are doing this, and we would like to build with quality, because the network that we are building should last for like 20, 30, 40 years. So we don't want to speed up and lose quality. So keep the quality and speed up and see what we can do.
Is there anything we in Sweden can learn from the other countries coming here? I mean, you are walking around at this event and looking at different seminars. Do you learn anything from this?
Well, for example, we are talking a lot of fiber all the way, but since Sweden is a very sparsely populated country, we will probably have to use some other technologies also in the toolbox to provide a good broadband experience for all. So we are looking into what can you do with the copper network. Can you speed it up? The history we had with ADSL, VDSL, now G.fast, maybe there will be technologies that we can use in some areas in Sweden. And in some areas probably we will have to have mobile solutions, because if you live out in the forest and maybe have tens of kilometers to the nearest village, of course you can't have fiber.
But on the other hand, I mean, you have fiber in the part of Sweden called Västerbotten, which is almost on top of Sweden. If you watch the Swedish map, it's almost on top, and the population up there, it's less people than in Sahara.
Yes, exactly. In those areas in Sweden, we have a project that you might call a fiber to the village project, but actually the people by themselves form some organization and maybe do the digging themselves and spend a lot of time themselves helping out. And in those areas, they will probably get fiber at a lower cost than if you live in a suburb to Stockholm. But you have to do a lot more work yourself. And you will see that also. But it's not that all the people in Sweden are willing to do that work by themselves. So of course there will be areas where we actually be provided with a good mobile broadband instead. And as you know, we are building a lot of mobile broadband network in Sweden right now. So there will be also support for the people out in the countryside.
And support for the fiber networks, I guess. We were talking with Hartwig from FTTH Council.
Yeah, exactly. Because it used to be so people discussed a couple of years ago, should it be a mobile network or a fixed network? And the answer now is both, of course. If you build up a fiber network and give people very good broadband experience in the homes, that actually drives mobile broadband connections, because the people would like to have that good service when they are on the move also.
He made an example of Turkey where they found out the market after bringing fiber out to the mobile base stations, and then they could start to build out to the houses in the near area.
Exactly.
Is that the way you're working here as well?
Well, I think when you are building fiber, it's very expensive. So what you have to do is look at your geographical area and see what kind of other customers can you find for your fiber network. It could be mobile base stations, it could be companies, not only consumer segments. So you have to look at all the demands you have in the geography and try to meet those demands at the same time, so you get your return on investment in a better way. I think
the Swedish government have a goal set up for 90% of people being connected to 100 megabit within the year 2020. Do you think we will be able to reach that target?
Well, first of all, I think the exact wording is not connected, have the possibility to connect. What is important actually that we have this strong demand in Sweden and actually people buy the connection. Because if they don't buy it, it's not use building that network. But so far, so good. But I think 90%, it's a tough challenge since we have the situation in Sweden we have with a large country and only 9 million inhabitants. So it will be tough at the end. So maybe you will see if we reach 90% or a little bit less. But I think it's a good goal. It's a good target for the country. But also we have to look into different other technologies to reach 90 and to reach 100%. Because if you don't have 100 megabit, maybe you're satisfied with 60 megabit. Could be so. But I think it's very important to have all the people in Sweden to have a good communication, because
I must ask you, actually, in 7 years' time, do you think you would hang on to only a 60 megabit connection?
Well, it's a lot of people now that doesn't even have 1 megabit today. So I think 60 megabit could be maybe a good solution, but at the same time you have a good mobile coverage. And the mobile network 7 years from now will probably provide a lot more than 60 megabit.
But the question was, will
60.
you be happy with 60 megabit?
I'm not sure of that, because I have fiber myself and I can see what I'm doing at home. So, of course, when you get used to 100 megabit, then you're not going to downgrade again. Right. That's for sure.
You're around here watching the event. What are you planning for the rest of the event? What are you planning to do? Are there any special seminars you're going to watch today?
Well, I'm a little bit keen on what's happening in the market, what are the trends, technology trends, trends on new services. And I think you learn a lot just going around talking to people, and a lot of people would like to talk to us from Sweden, the Nordic countries.
So you're not going to any specific seminar after this?
No,
you're just walking around and chatting?
Go into some seminars regarding the market update, for example, later today. I will go to and see what is the situation right now. It used to be so that the Nordic, Baltic and the Eastern Europe countries are leading this FTTH race. Is it still so, or is it any more Western Europe countries that are doing things? So I will look into that to see what is happening really. And of course new technologies. You always have to look into what is happening on the market.
Okay, Ove, thank you very much for coming to our studio.
Okay, thank you.
And we will continue our broadcast. As you can see now, the people are still eating lunch. As I told you earlier, you have the possibility to watch the whole conference in our live streams. So just log in at FTTHEurope.eu. And now, with me, I have two new people. And these are the researchers we have heard a little bit about earlier. It's Benoit Felten.
Yes.
Welcome.
Hello.
From Diffraction Analysis.
Yes.
And it's Thomas Kallstenius, iMinds.
Indeed.
Welcome to our studio.
Thank you so much.
You're having a seminar tomorrow, I've heard, where you are going to...
reveal some exciting things. Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Tomorrow we have a seminar which we call the Fibre, the business model. It's a process of trial and error. And I think the reason for the title is that we are looking more to actually getting field experience, right? So we're going to talk around not the theoretical business modeling a bit, but mainly, what can we learn from getting our hands dirty?
Yeah.
Testing our ideas with users, with applications, and, really synchronize it with the market. So I think that's kind of the red line for that session.
Okay. So what will you reveal? I mean, have anything happened? To begin with, the first question, were you shocked about what you saw when you got the numbers?
Well, so just to clarify, the user feedback is one part of the business model.
Okay.
So that's the part that I'm going to be showcasing. Mm. There are other aspects which Thomas will probably talk about some more. Mm. I don't know if shocked is the right word, but surprised certainly. What we were trying to do was essentially two things. First, as far as we were aware, these kinds of numbers never existed publicly. In other words, service providers very probably did this kind of study for their own needs, but no one did a broad study to try and understand and share with the rest of the industry what was happening. The second thing is that we decided to do these numbers for Sweden because Swedish is a mature market. And of course, if we want to see long-term trends in this industry, we have to look at a market which has already to a large extent adopted FTTH as a solution.
Oh yeah?
But even taking that maturity into account, yes, we were surprised by a number of the results, and to be honest, quite excited.
Oh yeah?
Pleasantly surprised, yeah.
And now you make me really...
Yeah. There are actually several studies. I mean, what Benoit will talk around is if you compare copper and fiber.
Okay.
And you will see shouldn't reveal it, but you will see significant differences between the usage between copper and fiber users.
We heard actually Hartwig Tauber from
Yeah.
FTTH Council just a little bit earlier here saying that people with fiber are more happy than people without fiber, and that will make me a much happier person within 6 months if my operator are keeping their word.
As an analyst, I wouldn't have used the word happy. To me, happy people is an REM song first and foremost. But
Pharrell, right?
but no, what we see is very clearly that the level of satisfaction with broadband is massively higher for FTTH users than it is for DSL users.
What's the reason behind that?
Well, in a nutshell, what we see from our data, and we're going to show the numbers tomorrow that back that, is that DSL users are frustrated. They realize that they're paying roughly the same price for a product that is just not as good, and in fact, in some instances, according to what they tell us, not good at all. And so the maturity of the market, as we understand it through those numbers, is really that even people who are not on fiber understand the benefits of fiber. And I think that's the difference with markets where fiber is less present. And basically, users have not, it's not gotten into their consciousness that there is a really better, tangibly better solution out there. And so that's, to me, the really interesting thing, because quite often when you talk about Sweden in the rest of Europe, people will say, oh yes, but that's Sweden.
Yeah.
What we want to highlight through the study is that this is a continuity. It's not that Sweden is different, it's just that Sweden is early.
Oh yeah.
And to me, that's a really important point to stress, that there is no Swedish exception. There's just an early adopter movement that started here.
Is there a way to prove that?
Well, I think we can, because in addition to Benoit's study, we also did one other study, which we're going to talk around, and that's when we checked what happens if you give people fiber. And that was done in the Flemish part of Belgium. So we checked the behavior before fiber and after fiber.
Okay.
So you could really see the usage pattern changing dramatically once you put fiber in the hands of the users. And that's the other side, because you take a snapshot of the Swedish example right now. We followed users for 3 years.
3 years, okay.
To understand what happened before and after. And that's also very exciting results, and quite complementary actually to what you showed.
Yeah.
So
I'm excited about that.
And they're not contradicting each other.
And you haven't told each other
Well,
the
he's
results.
seen my story. I haven't seen his story.
Okay. So, Thomas, you've seen Benoit's study, and you're half Swedish. So
I'm here, fully Swedish, but I don't live in Sweden anymore. That's true. But yeah, it's very exciting. I'm specifically, well, I can't reveal all the pattern, but there's something about how fiber is being used both upload and download, which is really telling me something about how applications will develop in the future. Also having, a cloud and having fiber and the complementarity between these technologies. So I want to spin more on that in the conference or in the session tomorrow, because there is something about upload and download which changes both of them.
Oh yeah.
So it's not, and that's also part of our study. I mean, we really changed the way we start using internet.
It's not just more, right? More is
Exactly.
absolutely in there.
No,
Oh yeah.
It's not just more, it's different as well.
Okay.
You do stuff when you have fiber, or at least if I stick to my own study, people who have fiber do stuff that people who don't have fiber don't do, right?
And
Or
what do
don't
you mean
as
with
often.
that?
Well, so for example, when you look at applications, and things that people do online, you see that for all of the common stuff, social networking, email, there's no difference between the samples, right? But for a lot of the more advanced stuff, like doing video communication or e-learning, there's a massive difference, right? So FTTH users are much more mature in their usage, not just in the amount of usage, but in what they do. They embrace more, let's say, leading edge applications that DSL users simply don't.
Okay.
So and sure, some of these applications require more bandwidth, but others don't. It's not just about the fact that you have more capacity. It's also that it opens you up, because you have more capacity, it opens you up to a lot of different things that you would not have looked at otherwise. There's a very interesting result from our study where we tested a number of, let's say, when I say futuristic, I don't mean 20-year, but like 2 or 5 years. So service concepts that are not quite in the market yet, but we already know what they're going to look like. And we tested interest. We said, if your service provider was to offer this service to you, would you be interested? And for all of these services, every single one, FTTH users are much more interested than DSL users. So that also means that as a service provider, you are creating the platform for future revenues.
But is this for all generations? I mean, the younger people, of course, they are keen to try everything out.
So you're absolutely correct that there is a generational gap, and in fact, the differences between DSL and FTTH are not as high in the less than 35-year-olds than they are in the above 50, let's say. But even overall, having said that, there's still more appetite from FTTH users.
To me, what we saw from our study is that the sheer speed, the capacity of fiber network provides different user experience. It's a bit like if you have an iPhone and you compare to your old phone, which was sloppy and slow, suddenly everything works just like charm, right? And that experience in itself is fantastic for users. And once they have it, they never want to go back.
Oh, yeah?
Fiber is very sticky, yeah? I actually never heard anyone who has fiber who wants to go back to DSL. Have you?
No. And the study again shows that.
But that's also the marketing dilemma, right? You must experience it, because once you see what it is, you don't want to go back. But how can you do that? How can you actually promote it in that way?
If I was to add we always have to be careful with analogies because we end up talking about cars or pizzas or highways instead of talking about broadband. But it's a little bit like if you get a faster car, you don't just go faster on the highway. You go to places you wouldn't have gone to if you only had your slow car. So it takes you to other experiences, and that to me is a big part of why they don't want to switch back, because they realize absolutely that going through these experiences on an inferior platform would be painful.
So people in Europe, they should get stickers to get on their houses, on the doors. I have fiber. And also maybe for their forehead.
I wish they did. I would certainly tattoo it on my forehead if I had fiber, but I can't.
He's the fiber guy, so I guess.
So I hope you don't tattoo DSL into your forehead.
Of course not. That's an old one.
Are there any other parts from the study you can reveal here?
The interesting thing, and it's something you have to start kind of massaging the numbers and digging to really make it come out. When we first looked at it, we had this strange sense that people who had DSL said it wasn't very good, it was too expensive, but the migration, the intentions for migration weren't high.
No.
So that puzzled us. We thought, well, if you're not happy with your solution, surely there's got to be a reason why you don't want to change. And when we started looking into it, what came out quite clearly is that nearly half of the DSL users can't change. Either because there's no fiber where they are, or because they're locked in a contract that doesn't allow them to change. And I mean, imagine, this is 45% of the established DSL customer base wants fiber but can't get it. So that's both a negative, of course, but it's also a positive because it means that quite often fiber gets deployed in the areas where the most revenue is going to be made first, right? And so inevitably, when you're deploying the network, there's a point where you go, should I go any further? Well, this tells us that if you go further, the demand is still there. In fact, it might even be higher because they're frustrated. They want it. I mean, 10 years ago, people who got it didn't necessarily know what they were getting.
No.
Now they know it exists and they can't have it. That's the best kind of demand. So it's quite exciting to us because we talk again and again, and it's kind of the purpose of this session tomorrow, that the business model is hard, and it is, right? But a big question mark around that business model is demand uncertainty. Will the demand be there?
Yeah.
And what this tells us is, in a mature market, the demand is absolutely there. And it's not just the first 30% or the first 50% of the population. So that's very exciting because it means service providers have a business model. Of course, they need to execute it properly. And in fact, one of the things I often say as an analyst is a lot more projects fail on execution than they fail on strategy or even the business model. But if they can get the execution right, the business is there.
Which is an interesting point, because that tells us a bit on how we should deploy the fiber network, right? Because one school of thought is that you deploy to those who ask for it.
Yeah.
Which is the short-term vision. But once you need to deploy to the second generation, it comes with a huge cost, unless you deployed it in a way where you can hook up them in a cheap way, right? So that's the question: how do you build this passive, expensive infrastructure to actually make the optional costs to hook on new customers as low as possible, given that we actually think there is demand, but it's not yet really captured?
No.
So it's also bringing it down to the actual revenues and the costs of building a fiber network, which is, in all fairness, there are 4 sessions, right? It's not only about this user experience. We're also going to talk around, how do you deploy it in a smart way.
Okay.
So,
but how do we deploy it in a smart way then?
Why? Well, that's I can't claim that I have it. But one thought I think, and we should discuss this more probably at the session, is also this passive infrastructure should be there for 70, 80 years, right?
Yeah.
And they will at least have to serve 3 or 4 generations of active technologies. We have to point-to-point EPON today. What's coming next, we can discuss. But this infrastructure has to stay in place, and it must be able to serve more technologies than we have today. So the question is how we build such an infrastructure in a kind of, I hate the word future-proof, but at least proof to some extent in the future. So that's also another discussion which comes out of this, together with how do you hook up customers in the second wave.
Yeah. A discussion we have had earlier today here in our studio is the fact that the Swedish people are paying about 2,000 euro up front to get their connection into the fiber connection into their house.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
You're not surprised?
No, I'm not.
Why not?
Well, I'm not surprised essentially for 2 reasons. The first one is, once you want it, you weigh things completely differently. If you are not sure, and someone comes and says you have to pay 2,000 euros, you hesitate, of course, or you even say, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I can spend 2,000 euro on a new sofa at IKEA or something.
But let's be clear. You're paying those 2,000 euros anyway, right? This is exactly like mobile phone subsidies. If you're buying your mobile phone, your iPhone, you're paying 500 euros or whatever the cost is these days. You're paying 500 euros, and of course your subscription is going to be lower because it's already paid for.
Yeah.
So this is similar. But there's another reason, and this is something we highlighted last year in a study that we did for the Fibre to Home Council. And that is that increasingly, and I think here in Sweden, very much so because of maturity, customers know that having fiber in their house increases the value of their house. So it's not just that they want it, it's also that they understand that financially, it's not money they're throwing out of the window. No. It's money that they're investing in their house. It's a bit like refurbishing your house, right?
Oh, yeah.
You could argue that you can perfectly live in a horrible looking house.
Yeah.
But you do it because you know that if you're going to resell it, first you do it because you want to live in a nice house, but also you know that if you want to resell your house, it's going to increase the value of your house. And this is exactly the same thing. So one of the questions that, and I don't want to give you the exact results because it's quite exciting, but one of the questions that we asked in the questionnaire we did was, what are your key criteria when you're choosing a new home? And all I can tell you is for FTTH users, broadband comes way higher than we expected.
Oh yeah.
Right. Which means that the value that is attached to that is quite clear to them.
Oh yeah.
Which has been confirmed. I mean, there was a US study some years ago when the recession was going on, and they asked, what would you give up first and last? And they would, stop going to the cinemas, stop going out eating, stop traveling, but they keep the fiber.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's really sticky. Once you have it, you don't want to give it up.
But can you see the same trend down in the Flemish
Flemish part of Belgium. Well.
Not that you have a whole lot of fiber there.
We don't have so much fiber there. That's true. Well, there is not an option there.
No.
That's DSL land, I'm afraid.
Okay.
We have very good DSL, I have to say, VDSL too. So it's not, it's also very good quality DSL compared to what you have in Sweden. So the difference is slighter. But I also see some trends of going more to fiber to the home, even in the Flemish part of Belgium.
Oh yeah. But is it possible to export? I mean, export the fact, export the knowledge to the rest of Europe that you need to invest in your house. The fiber is an investment. It seems like the rest of Europe hasn't seen that yet.
No, and I think, interestingly enough, I think the awareness here has not been structured. It's not. I remember the first time I came to Stockholm to talk about fiber. This was back in 2008. I met with a real estate owner who owned a number of apartment blocks for students. And he said to me a few years ago, in October, November time, when we assess the proportion of apartments that have been rented, we found out that 2 of our buildings were way below the others, like 30% below the others. And we couldn't understand why. And when we started looking into it, we found out that these 2 were the 2 that didn't have fiber. So for a real estate guy, if you see numbers like that, you don't need anyone to tell you that there's value. It's absolutely evident, right? So I think here in Sweden, it happened organically. In the rest of Europe, if these things can be highlighted, if they can be structured in a way that real estate players, even when the fiber has not been deployed, understand the benefits, then it will accelerate things because suddenly they will be willing participants to that ecosystem, which is not really the case today. For them, it's a non-topic or a very peripheral topic. It's not a core topic. One of the things that my company is working on, and we don't have definitive results yet, but we're working on an analysis of home prices in the Netherlands over the last 6 years. And this is in partnership with a Dutch company called Stratix that tracks FTTH coverage on a city-by-city basis. And what we want to do is we want to establish if there's a correlation between the fact that fiber has been deployed in the city and the way home prices have evolved.
Oh yeah.
Because if we can show that there's a correlation, it suggests that the market is aware of the value, even if it's not big discourses and a structured approach. But users are aware of it. And again, I don't want to promise results. It's looking promising so far, but we haven't gotten to the point where we can conclusively say that's the case. But I hope it is, because it's something we have suspected for a long time. And we do need to have these numbers out there so that in other countries, real estate people can look at this and say, I'm missing out on something.
Yeah.
And I think we need to create that awareness campaign actually to spread that word, because that may not be understood by everyone in Europe.
That's absolutely true. And I think that's the role of organizations such as the FTTH Council to actually talk as an industry as opposed to us individuals, as influent as we might think we are. There's a limit to our reach.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, if I look how they did it in the US, Verizon, for example, they had this fantastic marketing campaign where they had a fiber bus moving around talking about, they had kind of these home parties where they went home, like to have this sell plastic stuff, right? Yeah. Fiber home parties to talk about the benefits of fiber. That's marketing.
Oh, yeah.
I also have a background in marketing. So, you can be very creative when it comes to creating awareness. I think we're still a bit, technical when it comes to this.
Oh, yeah, that's
so
certainly the case.
Bring in the marketeers and create awareness. Huh?
So that's one of the solutions for the FTTH industry to be better on marketing.
Well, I would certainly argue that I think, as important as technology and financing are in this whole process, I think when I look at failures or at least struggling projects, it's never on those two.
No.
It's always on marketing, selling, finding the right offers. I think there's a lot of legacy thinking still in this industry. So this discontinuity between copper and fiber is not always perceived even by the operators who launched the fiber.
No.
And especially when they own copper assets as well, they don't really market the fiber to highlight how different that experience is, because they're worried that it's going to hurt their copper operations. And so it creates a continuity which makes it very hard to market, because selling something better is always harder than selling something new or revolutionary.
Yeah, of course.
And so, I mean, a lot of the work that I do with my customers is assisting them in accepting, you know, where can we be disruptive and how do we need to do it so that users get it like that.
Yeah.
And it's tough, but that's where the reward is.
Yeah.
And, you know, anyone who's run a business model, and I don't think Thomas will contradict me on this, knows that the difference between 30% take-up and 35% take-up financially is enormous.
Yeah, absolutely.
And sometimes it's the difference between failure and success, just that 5% of take-up.
Yeah.
And yet I see operators who don't want to offer too much because, well, then how will I get more money down the line? And I tell them, guys, if this is 5% take-up, your money is coming in now. It's not coming in 5 years. So, you know, it's a long-term thing, but it's actually marred by a lot of short-term thinking.
Does your study look anything into? I mean, if these fiber companies goes into an area, there are several people choosing to have fiber and several not choosing to have fiber. Does this study see anything about how jealous these choosers are?
Not at that kind of very localized level, because we would have needed a whole lot more budget to be able to do a study like that.
Maybe you should do the study in a year again.
Well, yeah, sure. But what I can tell you is, and this is going back to this study that we showed last year, we talked to a real estate developer in the UK that has signed a project back in 2005 that had 4 different tranches. And the first tranche was basically sold in 2008, and it had copper. And the next tranches were sold after that, and they all had fiber. And these guys, there's a professional company, the customers don't even know who they are. They get phone calls every week from people in the first tranche saying, why don't we have fiber? Please bring us fiber. So, I mean, neighbors are absolutely aware of it.
Yeah.
You were talking about the home parties. The cable in the 80s in the US did something that was really smart, which is that in a neighborhood, when they signed the first customer, they would give him money to organize a picnic in his home. And the only condition was the TV had to be on all the time. And guys would go there, eat the sausages, the hot dogs, and flick the channels. And they'd go back home and they say, darling, we need to have this thing.
Yeah.
And I think fiber operators could do very much the same kind of things.
Exactly.
But they're not quite thinking in that way yet. And so, you know, it's a source of frustration because they haven't quite gelled to the fact that the marketing needs to be different, the selling needs to be different. All of these aspects of the business model are just as important as the rest.
I mean, we can talk a lot about marketing for a long time, but you know, the best marketing is word of mouth.
Yeah.
You trust your peers. You don't trust people like us. You trust your peers, and if your neighbor says it's good, you probably think it's good as well. So if you can encourage that behavior, you can come a long way. And I also think that the pure technology marketing has backfired a few times. You know, with the mobile broadband and WOP and that stuff, which came out, and the MMS, it really didn't take off. It was complex acronyms. People didn't realize what it was. So marketeers are a bit hesitant going along that route, but I think it's time to actually promote fiber in a peer-to-peer way.
Yeah. I had a very brilliant question, but I just lost it.
Okay.
How long was your study? It was made during this year.
It's very recent. It's early December of last year. So it's
and how much people did you interview?
400 people, 300 on FTTH and 100 on DSL.
And these were all around Sweden?
Yes. we've looked at a high level. We didn't reconstruct a geographical sample because it didn't really matter to what we were trying to measure. So the rural to urban is probably the kind of natural spread in the population.
Yeah. Are you planning to do more studies like this?
So there is discussion of actually doing the same study in other countries this year to get some comparison basis, and also what I was talking about, maturity. So to see, depending on how advanced you are on that curve, how different the perception is. So I don't know if it's going to happen, but it's currently being discussed.
Will these studies change anything, do you think?
I hope so. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it. I seriously hope so. What's interesting to me is that first, for people from other countries who are looking at Sweden and wondering if what's happening here is replicable, I think this gives some clear answers. It also points at ways that you can measure these things that maybe have not been implemented in those countries. Even for Swedish players, I think our study brings in some really interesting results about the next step, about where the potential is coming from now on. So it's not just enough, I think, to say, well, Sweden is a success when it comes to fiber broadband, because what we see is there's still a whole lot of potential. And that, to me, is really interesting.
Yeah. Thomas?
Yeah, well, it changed. Yeah, we have to spread the word. But that's one thing. But another thing is, from a user perspective, the answer is clear. But then the underlying business model, and specifically think about the fiber ecosystem is getting more and more complex. You have this open access with several players, infrastructure, active layer. So it's, there is also this competitiveness which drives fiber in many cases. And sometimes in countries where there is no competition, actually it doesn't happen. So the mechanics of actually encourage the carriers to roll out fiber is another thing, which can be encouraged by these results, of course, but it's necessary, but not enough, I would say. And there's also something we're going to discuss in the session tomorrow, this multiplayer approach, how we can analyze it and show where different deployment scenarios actually make sense from a carrier perspective.
Yeah. So what are you looking forward to watch the rest of the show? I mean, we're almost just in the beginning or in the middle, depending on how you count.
I'm chasing for field experience, right?
Field experience.
Yeah, we're kind of an academic organization, so we're looking for the real cases. I'm looking to people who have been digging and deploying and experience out there. So
have you found any seminars like that here?
Yeah, absolutely. But you just have a coffee there. I just had a coffee with the Norwegian guys. Those who encourage people to dig themselves.
Yeah.
It's it's a fascinating story. We can learn a lot from that.
Okay.
So I'm looking for field experience, and there is plenty out here.
Oh yeah. And you, Benoit, you're looking forward for a special seminar?
Well, I have my company is very international, and we have customers literally all over the world. So what I'm after really is getting a better grasp on some of these experiences that you don't hear about every day. And this is a great event because it attracts not just people from Europe, but people from all around the world. So yesterday I found out some really interesting stuff about what's happening in Indonesia, in Saudi Arabia. And so, what I'm after is these little nuggets of data and information about these countries and how fiber is evolving in those contexts.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I haven't gone through the whole program with a pencil to identify exactly who I wanted to hear. As an analyst, I'm also here to meet my customers or potential customers, so you have to juggle between the two. But whenever I have 5 minutes, I try to hunt down whatever is likely to be of interest.
But the seminar you are having together, it's tomorrow?
Yes.
Tomorrow afternoon, 2:30, I believe.
2:15 maybe. Yeah, 2 o'clock roughly. Yeah.
2 o'clock roughly.
And it's going to be awesome. People really, really need to come.
It will change the way you think about fiber.
Interesting. Thank you both for coming.
Okay, thank you so
really
much.
interesting to hear
Thank you for
about
having
your
us.
studies.
Thanks.
Thanks you very much. Yeah, and here we are at the floor of Stockholmsmässan at the FTTH Council Europe 2014. My name is Sjodin, and I'm from Telecomnyheterna, which is a media partner of the FTTH Conference. And with me now, I have Paulo Seban. Welcome.
Thank you.
You're working with smart cities.
Yes, indeed.
What can you tell us more about smart cities? You had a workshop yesterday.
Yeah. Actually, we had a cooking show. So it was an experiment which succeeded. We tried to cook a smart city.
To cook a smart city. This sounds
yeah.
really, I mean, now you
Different.
got me on the hook.
Okay, ask.
And now I'm really interested. You must tell me more.
Okay.
How do you do that?
You know, smart city is something somehow new. And it's something which has to do with creativity, just like cooking. And you have a lot of ingredients which, if you mix them in a different way, you get a different result. And that's exactly what we did yesterday. It's if you take an analogy to the kitchen. So in the city kitchen, you have different departments. So they all cook their own good food. The electricity department and.
Yeah.
But okay, it's good, but it might not be new and it might not be smart. So the smart thing might lie between the departments, between
Okay.
the silos. And that was the idea, to take the ingredients from the different silos and mix them together in a different way and look what turns out.
Oh, yeah?
So, yeah.
And did you get any results?
Yeah, for instance, we had the smart home topic. So, and we draw a picture about how our home looks today, and you can see on this picture a lot of wires and tons of remote control and data everywhere, and you forget the password. You have data on that cloud, on your computer,
Yeah.
and maybe on the storage system. And at the end of the day, you are confused.
Yeah, definitely. I can recognize myself in that.
Yeah, me too, me too. And so, even if the topic was smart home, at the end we came up with we should have a meta cloud, so you have only to have one password, and through this meta cloud you access the different clouds. So a cloud which gives, like a middleware,
Yeah.
access to the different things you have around.
Oh, yeah.
It makes so it started with smart home, and what came out was slightly different,
Yeah.
but it definitely would make your life easier. And this is an important part of smart cities. It's not just about technology.
No.
It's about making life easier for the citizens and for the companies, for the key stakeholders. And sometimes we forget, because we talk about technology, connecting,
Yeah.
but yeah,
But
it's for the citizen.
We have viewers from, or at least visitors here from at least 84, 86 different countries.
Yes.
I'm not sure everyone knows what a smart city is. Can you tell me more about what is a smart city?
Okay, if you Google smart city,
Yeah.
You will probably come up with 200 different terminologies.
Yeah.
So, in other words, there is no standard for what is smart. What we created as our terminology is, it should have different components. One is ecology. One is making life easier for the citizens. One is making the city more efficient. And So these are the
And you have to do
the
all
major.
this via the telecom networks, or
The telecom network brings things together.
yeah.
So
But, I mean, you can do better ecology by,
by connecting what might belong together.
yeah, but you can also sort your garbage out. So
Yeah. So let's make if you're talking about garbage. So we take this example.
yeah,
You go the utility might go out every day to collect the garbage.
yeah,
Even if there is no or not enough garbage, you go and you create pollution. You know, if you put sensors or a camera or something which makes you know if you have to go or not, so you are optimizing the system and you are saving the city, so the pollution.
yeah,
So, and the analogy we make in this sense is what does it mean being smart?
Yeah.
So, okay, what does it mean become smart? It's another question. We are smart, at least I guess we think we are smart, human being. And one component of our infrastructure is the nervous system.
oh yeah,
So we believe that this is one of the main reasons why we are smart. We have sensors,
yeah,
we get informations, we transport the informations in real time
Yeah.
and symmetrical, and we make sense out of it. And if you want to turn something else, like a city, into a smart city, it's not that different.
okay,
You need a super fast symmetrical nervous system,
yeah,
and of course you need something which is smart, systems behind.
yeah,
But without the nervous system, no senses, no infos, no reaction, no learning, no action.
no,
So just silo thinking like today.
yeah.
So
So, are there any cities who have come further than others when it comes to smart cities?
there are different approaches, and of course Barcelona is one. Amsterdam is one. They have big initiatives, a lot of projects. I mean, it's not like turning a grown old city overnight into a smart one. So you have to implement a lot of smart projects, and you have to fail
Yeah,
sometimes to become smarter.
yeah.
So
Can you give an example of what Barcelona and Amsterdam has done to be smarter?
So a really new approach in Amsterdam, and I was astonished. Yesterday we had a gentleman from, he's advising Amsterdam City
Oh yeah,
on the strategic way. And so they asked homeless people what their need is in a smart city.
okay,
Yeah, that's completely
yeah,
okay and new.
yeah.
So
And
what you guess they came up with?
I don't know. Better ways to arrange somewhere to sleep.
Yeah, maybe. No, it was about charging the mobile phone.
Oh yeah,
Yes, they have no place where they can charge the mobile phone.
Of course
and
not.
Even they all, not maybe not all, but a lot of them have mobile phones. They
Oh,
are
yeah.
connected, but they need to have access
yeah.
to a power
Okay.
supply.
Yeah,
And so this was a small but niche project, but okay, it shows it's considering different stakeholders and different needs.
yeah,
So that was a good one.
yeah. Barcelona. I'm going to Barcelona myself at Sunday. So, what should I look after when it comes to smartness in Barcelona?
I don't know. I don't know details about Barcelona. Unfortunately, we didn't have people from Barcelona yesterday in the. But okay, what they have in common? They collaborate. They are organized also in councils like City Protocol,
Yeah.
and they exchange their experience. So if Amsterdam does something which is good or something which failed, they communicate and they copy from each other.
Oh yeah.
So, and this is a good thing. And the other thing is that increasingly now bigger cities are engaging themselves in standards, because otherwise every city is inventing the wheel,
Yeah.
the new wheel, and it doesn't really make sense.
No.
So let's get smarter together. That's the approach at
Yeah.
the moment.
We're in Sweden now.
Yeah.
Is Sweden behind or in front of the others, or we're in the middle of the pack?
I would say you did or the Swedish people and the government did the homework very, very well, because broadband is everywhere.
Yeah.
So mobile broadband and fiber to the home. And this is the basis, this is the nervous system. And so, yeah, talking in these terms, Sweden is ahead. And
We have the base layer at least.
yes, yes. And of course, several initiatives to implement new smart services. Yeah.
Yeah. So, talking about the rest of the conference, are you looking ahead for any specific seminars the rest of the conference here?
To be honest, until now I was so busy with the workshop, and today I did the moderation of Smart Everything.
Oh yeah.
The topic. Yeah,
Smart
very
everything.
Smart
So-
everything.
So now you have to tell me more about the smart everything.
I got you.
Not only the cities. Now it's everything.
It's everything. So we had a lady, Maria. She's a CEO of a Swedish organization, and they interconnect the universities. So Sweden has probably the best connection in universities, 1 gigabit.
Yeah.
So, yes, we had someone from a council which organizes a smart grid topic
Yeah.
for the utilities, and he was talking about the importance of the grid in the future.
Oh yeah.
So because he made really a good analogy. He said if Graham Bell would show up today and you would show him a smartphone,
Yeah.
he wouldn't recognize it.
No, of course not.
No chance, because it looks different, no wire, so no chance for him.
And the phone is just a small app
Yeah.
within the machine.
Yes, yes. But if you would show the grid, so the power supply to someone who lived 100 years ago, he probably would recognize it.
Yeah.
So it means things didn't change a lot over the
No.
last 100 years. But in 20 years, he stated, they will not recognize the network anymore.
Okay, and that's because everything goes smart now.
That's because now the telecommunication field and the IT field is becoming a critical success factor for the power supply of the future.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, if you think about distributed power generation, solar, wind, you name it. It becomes increasingly more difficult to handle the grid. So, and the consumer, today's consumer, if they have a solar installation on their roof, they become a prosumer.
Yeah.
So and a utility becomes the manager of all these volatile things, and also kind of a broker.
Oh yeah.
So if you are a prosumer, you have something to
Yeah.
sell
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
something to buy.
Yeah.
And so business cases will change, and the power utilities, if they use the fiber for the core business, I mean they have fiber, and they might also use it for other purposes like other services,
Yeah.
telecom, or maybe being an enabler for others to use their fibers.
Oh, yeah.
So things are moving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now after this session, you're just going to relax and go out and enjoy. You've done your work, so to say.
Yes, yes. I will have a look, and probably if this interview would have been in a few hours, I could tell you what I have seen, but I really just went from one place to another.
Paolo, thank you very, very much for coming to our studio.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
And that was all for this lunch broadcast at the FTTH conference here in Stockholm at Stockholmsmässan. We'll be back 4:45 with 3 more people, very interesting people, all of them, I promise. Thank you.